Talk 360. Talk 360 for in-depth analysis on the week's news with Latif.
In the studio today, I'm joined by the consumer man. He's the Secretary General of the Consumer Federation of Kenya, COFEK, Stephen Mutoro. I'm also joined by Engineer Linus Gitonga. He's the Director of Petroleum at the Energy Regulatory Commission. And I'm joined by Francis Njogu. He's the Vice Chairman of the Petroleum Institute of East Africa, and he's also the Chief Executive Officer at Gulf Energy, one of the oil marketers. He's here to talk about the industry in general, like everybody else is here to talk about it. And let's start with you, straight up, Engineer Gitonga. We know that the price of oil, especially this last time when it went up by a whopping 6 shillings, everybody was up in arms. I mean, we were just wondering, after dropping it for a couple of months back to back, and then you take it back up by 6 shillings, what's happening? I mean, what is it? Why is it that fuel prices in Kenya fluctuate so badly?
Thank you, Eric. Good afternoon, listeners. In Kenya, we import all our petroleum products, either refined or in crude form, and we refine it in Kenya. When it comes to costing, about 90% of the pump price composes of international cost of petroleum. Therefore, whenever the international prices go up or down, the effect is that the prices in Kenya will also go up or down with almost the same percentage.
The same percentage that it went up with or down with?
Almost the same percentage.
Okay.
Yes.
Now then, in the last, the oil in Kenya, the price of oil in Kenya, maybe even internationally, was below 90 shillings a litre in Kenya. And then suddenly it went up to 100, it passed 110, it passed 120. I mean, it just went up. And very many people, in fact, I've posted this question on our Facebook and Twitter, and very many people are wondering, okay, why the sudden increase, even in the international oil prices? What is it that has made oil become so expensive?
If you look at the numbers posted internationally, the price of, say, for example, 2006, around December, was around $550 per metric ton for what we call premium today. And if you look at the prices today, it's 1146, which is more than double the price. That is within the last 6 years.
Yeah.
There are two main factors that affect our pump prices. One is the price, like I've said. It has doubled over those years. The other main factor is the exchange rate. In 2006, the exchange rate was at around 67, 65. Today, the exchange rate is at around 84, 85. So those two main factors have affected, and that's why our prices have gone up by that big margin.
Now, of course, I'll let you, Stephen, come in at some point, because what we know is that in the last couple of years, we've had a way in which the oil marketers have been bringing oil into the country, and this is called the open tender system, where they go and they tender, they say, I want to bring for the industry, I supply for the industry, and you bid, and the others have an obligation to take up the product that you bring into the country. But then we've been hearing issues about the open tender system, that, this open tender system, some marketers are saying it's not working, some consumers, maybe out of ignorance, are saying it's not working. At some point, the energy ministry is blamed. It's, you announce this, you're supposed to give us 7 days notice, you're giving us 48 hours notice, you're giving us 24 hours notice. How does it exactly work, the open tender system?
The open tender system is a joint procurement of petroleum products. We realize that in Kenya we only have one jetty, we have only one pipeline. The stocks that we need in this country, no one single marketer can bring a whole vessel on their own. And because of the common user facilities that we are sharing, it is very important that we harmonize the imports of all petroleum products in Kenya. And that's why it is necessary that we do joint procurement of petroleum products. Secondly, we tender for what we call premium and freight. The cost of product is already fixed. We cannot do anything about that because it's set in the international market. But we tender for what we call premium and freight, which is the cost of bringing the product to Mombasa from wherever you are buying it from.
Yeah.
And as a result of the tendering process, we see a lot of marketers who are interested in bringing the product, and that competitiveness makes us get the best rates that we can get in the market. So the open tender system at the moment is one of the best things we have in Kenya. Our fellow neighbors like Tanzania have already enumerated that, and they have already copied that, and they have started the joint procurement.
They're using that.
Tanzania is already doing it.
Mm-hmm.
Uganda is already thinking of going that direction. So it's something that is very good for this country.
Francis Njogu, let me come into you now, because first of all, as Gulf Energy, you're among the companies that really use the open tender system. You come in, you bid, you get the lowest bid, you get the tender, and you supply. But then, as a player in this sector, just explain it in the clearest terms possible, because we need to understand this very well in the clearest terms possible. What is it that you tender for? What factors that you have control over, and what factors don't you have control over, and how does that end up impacting us or helping the market?
All right, thank you, Eric. Just to explain about the open tender system, the country's requirement for the coming period, for instance, the tenders that are going to come in the third week of November, will be for delivery of refined product in December, late December, which will cover December and January requirement, or for crude for delivery in the new year, about 8 weeks ahead. So what happens is that the industry's requirement, which is represented by the consumption of the various marketers, basically marketer A, B, C, will aggregate their quantities, because the tender seeks to optimize economies of scale.
Yeah.
As ERC has said here, that no one marketer can actually consume an entire vessel. And considering that a vessel normally takes about 2.5 days at the berth, in Mombasa, and we have only one berth, you'll realize that the maximum physically number of vessels that Kenya can handle would be about 12 or 13
a month.
Then there was the need to bring the tender together. Now, the world price, whenever you go to buy in the market, you're told that you will buy what people have had called Platts. Platts basically is a scale that gives the world price for the physical commodity. 1 ton of super, which is it's called premium unleaded.
Yeah.
We'll go for this in future. It's nobody's in control of that, isn't it?
Yeah.
We will know only on the date that we load. So then what was agreed on is that the marketers or the suppliers to the tender bid for that which is in their control. What does it cost you to deliver the product in Kenya? It's like calling a tender between various cab drivers. What does it cost you to take somebody from here to Hurlingham? Isn't it?
Yep.
So this guy will offer that, I think my vehicle consumes so much, then I will get you there for 1,000 bob. Mine, I'll get you there for 1,500. And the dates are specific. You're going to depart here at what time and arrive there. So that really what you're competing for is something that is clearly measurable.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in our instance in the industry then, it's a freight and premium component. Now, freight is very clear. It's a cost of chartering a ship from wherever you're going to load to deliver it to Mombasa. Isn't it? That quantity. Now, the premium is because once the refinery offers a price, there are those people who may buy, like you've had people talk about futures or something like that. There are people who just take a position and buy product, isn't it? Hoping to be able to sell it. Sometimes the refinery may say, this is the price, and I'm going to offer you a slight margin on top of it.
Okay.
So that is the premium. It also covers the supplier's margin. It also covers the cost of finance to buy the cargo, because you're physically going to buy the cargo, bring it to Mombasa and sell it on to the other marketers.
Right.
It covers things like insurance. It covers things like, fuel, just for statistics purposes, I think super starts to evaporate at 18 degrees. So by the time actually you've loaded a vessel in the Gulf and deliver it here, you expect a certain evaporation loss. We call it ocean loss. So those components are what is aggregated as freight and premium, and then you bid a number. And it's normally, for the refined product, it's normally a premium on $per ton basis. And for crude oil, it's on $per barrel basis.
So this is actually what you place in as your tender. Freight
Yes.
and premium.
Yes.
Mine is gonna be at $0.2.
Yes. Yes.
And somebody else comes at 0.17.
Yes.
0.17 of course
0.17 carries the day.
carries the day.
Yeah.
So and then this, as you said, if it's for crude, it's for delivery 2 months after the tender.
Roughly 2 months after the tender. Yes.
And if it's refined product, it's for delivery a month after.
After the tender. Yeah.
What happens if you said you've won the tender and then you don't deliver on time?
If you deliver now, that's the challenge that we have in this country, because when you collate everybody's demand and put it together, then that supplier has to be responsible, because then they're carrying the countries, not just the countries. Uganda is buying through Kenya, isn't it?
Right.
Congo is buying through Kenya. Southern Sudan is buying through Kenya. So you have a responsibility for the region. If you delay, then it becomes very tough. For
Then
the whole,
it's upon you actually to make sure that you deliver this.
Absolutely. You know where you're going to get the oil. You know that your vessel will be there to load,
Right.
and will be able to sail in that period and arrive here.
Stephen Mutoro, come in.
Yeah.
And now we understand that this OTS is basically to make sure that we streamline operations either at the port, and make sure that we streamline operations and make sure that we get the best pricing.
Yes.
Consumers have been complaining that we don't understand what exactly happens with this whole issue of bringing in the product from Dubai or from wherever until it lands in Mombasa. And when we hear that prices have gone down in September, we expect that in October our price will go down. And as we understand, the price that they have bought for in October is not necessarily what we're going to have in December.
Yeah, first of all, Eric, I want to thank you. This is one of the best Talk 360s, because you have the regulator, you have the marketer, you have the consumer. It's actually complete.
This is
yes, I think for the talks that you have had, this is actually one of my best. Now, when I look at the marketer, when I look at the regulator just in the room, I don't see anything wrong with them. First of all, we need to appreciate that there are institutions that are providing a very, very essential service. But I think there's everything wrong in the manner they provide the service. One is the regard for the customer. One of the members of the Petroleum Institute of East Africa, who for obvious reasons we cannot mention, did mention, they have this joint procurement, which in itself is a niche of governance. It raises governance when bidders come together to determine the price. So one of the bidders, in broad daylight, was saying, what is the problem with the marketers? Set any prices, consumers will be able to pay. That was a statement that was mentioned in broad daylight, and we are keenly, of course, watching that particular member of the PIEA. So it begins with the manner they do it. And there's a book by a Nigerian that I love, author, The Trouble with Nigeria. So The Trouble with Nigeria, actually you can stop reading that book after the first sentence, because he summarizes the book that the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely that of missing leadership. There is a problem with regulation in the energy sector. I mean, look at even the telecom sector.
When you talk about problem with regulation in the energy sector,
Yes.
first of all, the energy ministry
Yes.
is the one that worked with the players in the industry, and they came up with this open tender system. And as they've called it, it's an open tender system. If you want to participate in it, you can.
If
right?
it were open, Eric, that's why I'm sorry, I may have to cut you short. If it were open, then consumers would have been in that meeting, and we will have actually cited that particular marketer. Look at that statement alone. Consumers will be able to pay. Don't worry, set whatever price. Then one of the players in the industry, and this is a hard fact, there's nothing scientific about formulas. Let's look at the basics, because consumers feel the basics is about the value for their money. They're not getting it, and that's a fact. Somebody bids for 4.8.6 dollars per barrel. After 3 days, that person is able to drop that to 1.4. I mean, what dynamics would have really come to play? Just because the tender has been cancelled, the price comes down so sharply that is so questionable, because even at that low price, somebody is still making profit. So question is, what if consumers paid at the initial price of $4.8 per barrel?